Hello. Long time no see. I have been dealing with my Saturn return with transiting Saturn grinding over my natal Saturn for the last several months. And I can tell you the day that Saturn crossed into Aries felt immediately different for me. Complete vibe shift. Despite the fact that it was still grinding over my natal sun, that seemed less of an issue than when it was in my natal sign of Pisces. So there's been a lot going on for me. I have been wanting to put a reading out for a good minute, and I just have not had the energy or the drive or even really the connection with that aspect of myself and with spirit. It seemed very much like it was more I had things to go through as opposed to trying to put that energy into translating the energy. Like, I couldn't pull away from it. I couldn't become objective, which I feel like is what's required of a really good tarot reading, to some extent. I mean, I could go off on a whole tangent about this. Anyway, I'm shuffling some cards because I feel compelled to do a reading of sorts. I'm not really sure who the intended audience is, but I assume that if it resonates with you, then it does. And if it doesn't, well, there's other readings out there. I don't feel compelled to compete or really stamp my presence on the tarot community. I do this because I like to do it, and because I feel like it helps other people. It also helps me a lot in some ways. It's very therapeutic, and it mirrors back a lot that's going on in my own life. But I want to see what's going to come through today. I'm using the Rider-Waite deck right now. It's actually probably my oldest tarot deck. I've had this for, I don't even know how long. Well over a decade. Maybe about 13 years. It's a good number. I'm trying to tune into something, because something's there. I'm just hearing like water dripping, like being in a dark cave and there's like water dripping down, and it's really dark, but there's like illumination coming up from the water. Like there's a pool of water in this cave. I have like a super old painting of something similar. It's kind of like that. But I'm hearing very vividly the sound of the water dripping and echoing throughout this cave. There's like something to that. I don't know if this is like representative of some kind of purification process, kind of letting go. It's like some sort of shedding or detoxifying. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of the above. First card we have is the Empress, so Venus is showing up for this reading. Honestly, that kind of makes sense with the cave imagery for me, because that very much seems like an aspect of Venus that I don't think gets explored a lot. You know, it's the aspect of the earth that's unseen but is compelling in its mystery somehow. Compelling because of the things there are to discover, whether those are, formless, intangible things, realizations, or treasures of sorts, rare earth minerals and whatnot. Whatever the case may be, we'll see how this unfolds. Venus is making her presence known. And right now, no, I don't want to stamp this in time. We have the Hierophant in reverse. Now, this is the card of Taurus, which is a Venus-ruled sign. Okay. It's coming out really literal for me as opposed to kind of symbolic. Taurus season ended when I'm recording this. It's in the midst of Gemini season, coming right up to the northern solstice. And I don't know if this represents a connection to whatever situations had arisen during the month of Taurus. Maybe there were some themes that were being explored or some experiences that we were having that were calling into question our relationship with established order. Established order in the sense that maybe we've fixed a certain degree of understanding on our realities. A certain paradigm, it's easiest to explain as a religious paradigm, but it's not necessarily that, I don't think. It's more, a friend of mine recently said that the stories we tell ourselves are the most important, because it really dictates how we go about our lives. And I think a lot of us have an issue with sort of surrendering our impetus, our drive, our decisions to the universe and let life happen to us rather than really directly engaging with it. Because maybe we believe, maybe even subconsciously, maybe we're not necessarily conscious of the fact that we believe there is no ultimate free will, that everything's predetermined, and that's a dangerous trap to get stuck in. Personally, I believe that there's a certain shape that is predetermined, a certain shape to our lives and to our experiences, and our decisions really, I apologize about the plane, really dictate how the shape unfolds. Like, there can be certain variances, certain unique details or embellishments to the shape that our lives take. And sometimes we can even really veer off course. We have free will. I think predestination is kind of a naive way to look at things. We have responsibility. We're responsible for the way our lives unfold to a very large extent. I mean, there are some things that are just outside of our control, but our response to them we love our military. Our response to them really is what gives form to our experiences and determines where we're going with things. I don't know why that's such I'm getting really fixed on this idea and trying to unpack it. Let's move on to the next card. We have Strength, which is Leo. Yet another fixed sign. I think that's interesting. inherent in the image that I was getting with the cave before we started this reading was this idea of containing, of holding. Like, I can hear the water dripping into this pool from, whatever stalactites on the ceiling. But it's like, it felt like a bowl or a container of some sorts. Like, there's a purification happening, a shedding, a letting go. But it's still taking place within a container. And maybe that's a message against like stagnating, because maybe we feel like we are shedding or letting go of things, but we're still kind of deceiving ourselves because we're holding on to what we're shedding and what we're letting go of and not letting it flow. Because I get very much the sense that the water in this cave is still, it's not quite stagnant. There is like illumination coming up from the depths, wherever those might be. Okay. I got the sense of like somebody pulling the plug from the drain, and it was like the light like got brighter in this cave. That's kind of an interesting concept. I think the fact that there's a lot of fixed energy on the table right now really calling us to that state of flow, that state of openness, that state of letting go, of being intentional within every moment that we have, like I'm trying to be right now. I'm gonna pour some tea. I'm drinking some oat straw and chamomile tea, and that's probably why I'm doing the reading, because I finally feel like I can settle in and relax and allow the message to come through. We have the Knight of Pentacles as the next card. This may or may not be relevant, but the immediate impression that I got, especially because it's placed right here next to Strength, was the image of Mars moving out of Leo and into Virgo, into the Earth sign. And it's like a complete vibe shift. It's instead of, I don't know how to explain the impression that I have. Instead of getting angry about the aircraft that's flying by and being really loud and obnoxious, you just kind of allow it to happen and move on. No. I don't know. There's a sense of activity welling up from a very metaphysical space with Leo. It's an inner strength, an inner show of force, an inner expression, an inner nature being expressed outwardly, a pure nature, pure activity, unadulterated by, I'm hearing like sunglasses. Like you're not wearing rose-colored glasses or yellow-colored glasses, no tints, no filters, no holds barred. There's just this sense of things just kind of arising spontaneously and naturally, and being not necessarily forceful, but strong, resolute. And I see Venus here, and I feel like she's pointing down at the Strength card. There's something there, something that she's trying to say. Okay, I got the image of somebody like in the bathroom with like those opening medicine cabinet mirrors, and like I saw the medicine cabinet like close, and they were just like looking at their face. And it was like it was somebody else that they were looking at. Like they were gazing into this mirror and having some form of communication with somebody who wasn't the reflected person. I don't know, this idea of mirrors. But it's like different like each the person on each side of the mirror, because there's very much like this sense that there are two separate beings like looking into this mirror at each other, and it's like they're the same but they're not. They're like opposite expressions, or they're different somehow, and they're communicating, they're merging. Okay, and another aspect of that message is calling me back to the Hierophant being in reverse, and with the card of Leo strength being right here. You know, they're, what's the word? When signs are on the different sides of the solstices, there's a word for it, and I cannot think of it right now. You know, they're essentially, they're sections of the ecliptic that are at the same declinations relative to the equator. So Leo and Taurus are kind of mirrored on each half of the northern segment, the northern half of the sky. And there's this even with my art lately, like there's this concept of mirrors, of things being sliced in half like sagittal planes, just like they're the same thing. And it's like, it's so simple is what I'm hearing. It's like this concept is so simple and nobody's getting it. Nobody's understanding it. Like, pick each other up and shake each other. Like, this is it's the same thing. We're the same person. We're in the same boat. And the Knight of Pentacles is down here like, yeah, but I'm gonna go this way because I have money to make. Or I'm gonna go this way because there's treasure in the cave that I need to find. I need to pull the plug at the bottom of the cave and let this water drain out so I can get to the source of the light. There's this impulsion, this impulse, this need to practically do something, to go somewhere. And it's not like a spiritual or dream-based journey. It's like it's in the world. It's a real life waking consciousness journey, physically moving your body somewhere, physically doing something as a way of processing and maybe clearing out this energy that's been contained and held. And I see another image. It's like this knight of coins. It's like there's a rope on the horse and it's connected to a cork at the bottom of this cave, and as the Knight of Pentacles moves, it pulls this cork up, and suddenly everything's able to move freely, and the light gets brighter and the cave is illuminated, and you can see that the walls are made of crystal. You know, whatever it is. I don't know why this image is like so stuck in my awareness right now, but it's like it's the only thing that I can think of. I'm going to pull another card. We have the Three of Coins in reverse. And for whatever reason, I feel like I want to put that in the heart of the reading. So I'm going to sit and think about this for a little bit. Okay, less than the traditional associations with this card, and even with the details of the card, the only thing that's standing out to me is the shapes. You know, you have this dual nature with these two shapes here, and then you have this singular shape. You know, it's like the yin and the yang, the male and the female. Again, this idea of mirrored natures, but it's like it's inverted, and it's inverted as a way of because I'm hearing like a very frustrated voice as I'm trying to do this. It's like, you didn't get it when it was right in front of your face, so we're going to turn it upside down so that you're forced to look at it in a completely different perspective, because that's the only way that you're going to get it. That's the only way you're going to understand what's happening, or that's the only way you're going to understand how everything is working together, how everything is interconnected. Every point has an opposite, diametrical opposite. Like there's something to that. There's something to this concept. I was even half asleep this morning. I discovered some website where you can plot a point on the Earth globe, and it'll show you the exact opposite point on the globe. Like, I don't know, there's just something to this idea of like diametrical opposition within a spherical plane. Every point is interrelated, but these opposition points are the ones that are the most potent, that have the most relevance for each other. Every other point, it's all interconnected, everything affects everything else. But it's this polarity. And it could just be, we're coming up to the solstice, and so this idea of polarity, of extreme north and extreme south, it's being called into a collective awareness. It's being expressed in the world that we're living in. And maybe that's why it's important. Like, it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't relevant. We like to think that our lives are separate from the unfolding of time, but we're like expressions, we're crests on the wave of time. We're like the foam on the waves as they crash here for a moment and then kind of fades away. But it's like it's all part of the system. It's all expressing the larger whole. It completes the shape. It gives the shape. Can we get more polar than this? I don't even know what to say. And I'm hearing the Postal Service song, Such Great Heights, in my head. They won't see us waving from such great heights is a line that keeps replaying in my head, and it just started as I pulled this card out. Because I feel like this figure represents like the polar point, the apex, whether that's north or south. Probably north, because we're coming up on the northern solstice, whatever. And, this was like the ascending year, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and then we have Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. And I don't know why this is so, like, I can't get it out of my head. It's the only image that I can see. It's the only concept that's presenting itself to me, maybe because there's something to that. But he almost looks disinterested. I don't know why. I'm looking at him and I'm seeing like the image of a clock, and he's like looking at a specific hour, a specific time on the clock. And when I was explaining it to you, I went Aries on this side, Libra on this side. So Virgo, and so he would be looking at about where Leo is in that, the way that I plotted that out. So I don't know if there's something relevant to like the month of Leo this year, July to August. I'm seeing like the cymatic patterns on water, like the waveforms, like there's something vibrating. And that's what the waves in the background are. I don't know why they're like calling me to that, but there's this like radial pulse vibrating in the water. It's creating a certain like momentary burst of geometry. There's another message in here that's quieter than the initial message that I've already given. And it sounds like wind rustling through pine trees. Like it's a very specific sound. Like my brain just now was like, what about the sound of aspen trees? And it was like, I heard that rustling and it was like, no, that's not it. It's too aggressive. It's the pine trees. It's the evergreen trees. The wind, going through the needles, through the narrow spikes. Something about that quality. It's like, it seems like it would be aggressive, but it's really fluid and gentle and filtering. I'm hearing filtering. It filters, and the sound is the sound of filtering. It's like the teeth, the whale teeth, how it filters out the water and it catches the food. I don't know a whole lot about whales, so I just know that they have like crazy amount of teeth. It's basically like hair or like pine needles, and it's how things are filtered out. They're filtered through these. I'm seeing the image of somebody like weaving a basket. Maybe it's like a winnowing basket, because that kind of makes sense. Okay. So even connecting to the image of the cave that I was getting, where it was like a container for this water, and there's like a cork or some sort of plug, some sort of something that's keeping the water stuck in here. And now when that's pulled or cleaned out or something, the water is able to flow through it like a sieve into some, I don't know, larger receptacle, some other space where it's no longer being contained by the specific cave. But it's still like catching the larger particulates, if that makes sense. So like if you have a grain in a winnowing basket and you're trying to filter out the chaff, the bran, the larger bits and leaves and bobs that you don't really want, you want to separate it from the grain, you have your winnowing basket. I think there's multiple ways of doing it, but I'm seeing it like specifically using water. Like you submerge the grain in this winnowing basket and you allow the running water to pull out the lighter bits, the leaves and the sticks and the bran, the parts that you don't want to use. And then when you pull the winnowing basket back out again, you're left with just the grain, maybe a few little bits and bobs here and there, but it's mostly separated. And I feel like that's the process that's being communicated here. But it's like it being expressed in polarities. Like this, there's very much like this segmented idea of like first you put the basket into the water and then it separates, and then you pull the basket out of the water. Like there's a slice between those two acts of submerging and pulling out, of descending and ascending, or other way around. Like paying attention to this polarity, like paying attention to situations that are presenting themselves in a polar way, in a polarizing way, because they're ultimately the message there is the same thing, and it's trying to point something out. It's trying to show you something that's important and relevant. I'm going to pull one more card and then we'll call it, okay? I'm already at 30 minutes or so. Okay, we have the Three of Cups. You know, this is the second decan of Cancer. And I don't know why that's the first card that it was like, yeah, mention the decan. Cancer is the northern solstice sign. It begins at the point of the northern solstice. I'm getting stuck on like this swirling imagery. Like somebody's making a tincture, somebody's like brewing potions, and it's like this act of swirling is like giving it energy, but it's not like a circular swirl. The three is like coming out as like a triangular swirl, like you're moving in a triangle. Maybe you're like whisking something in a triangular fashion, and that's what's imbuing some sort of quality or energy to the situation. There's also this sense of like cooperating, like bringing a third party into the situation. Like maybe there's been so much emphasis on this dual opposition that we're just getting lost in it, and so the introduction of a third point, a third position, a third person that's not stuck in that opposition and is kind of looking in from the outside is what's going to help this stuckness move. It's what's going to help the container work in the way that it was supposed to, as opposed to holding stagnating water or whatever the case may be. It's allowing things to flow and filter through and move to where they need to move to. Like, this isn't the time to be holding on to things. This is the time to be filtering, not necessarily letting go, like not completely just upending your life or upending a situation or ending something, but allowing things to move and filtering and gathering the useful bits, the grain, gathering the harvest, and letting what isn't that pass through. Like the wind through the pine needles, like just letting it flow, letting it go elsewhere. Looking back at this card, this is what initially got the pine needle imagery in my head, was these sort of conifer shaped trees in the background. And I just realized at the end, we've got the grain right here, typical symbology kind of associated with Venus, with abundance, with harvest, that the whole notion of prosperity and fruitfulness and fertility. But I didn't make the connection until just now. Like, hey, that's the grain. And it's not even to say that the stuff that you're separating from the grain, is not useful to you. Maybe it just has different uses. And instead of trying to homogenize everything, separating the parts out for their intended purposes, as opposed to just trying to, maybe that's part of this potion making imagery, like instead of putting everything in a giant pot together and just stirring it up and hoping that the finished product comes out good. It's like, no, these are separate ingredients and they need to be provided with distinction in order for this to work. And I'm thinking about oat straw. Oat straw has been very prominent in my attention for the last couple of weeks, and I really think it's what's helping me get through this period in time, because there's been a lot happening for me. But yeah, this notion of, I have oats for oatmeal, and that's really good and really delicious, but then I also have the stalks and the leaves, the tender bits of the oat plant itself, and that's made into an infusion, a tea that I can drink that has a lot of the same qualities as, say, a bowl of oatmeal would, but in a more potent, more direct, more even more powerful way. I don't know how best to put this. Hopefully it makes sense. Like, they have different purposes. They're not completely distinct from one another necessarily, but they have different uses. One's medicinal, one's nutritive. They're both nutritive, they're both medicinal, but you know what I mean. Maybe. I barely know what I mean, but I just know there's something about distinguishing things for their intended purposes. Not everything has to be the same. Not everything has to be used for the same thing. There's a reason there's distinction in the world, and there's nothing wrong with having different points of view, different approaches, different ingredients. You know, you can have one recipe and 20,000 different ways of making the same recipe. Like the dish itself is fundamentally the same, but there's different variations depending on the perspective of the person who's making it. And that's beautiful. It's important. We're getting so caught up in this very black and white way of distinguishing things, but it's like, yeah, there's these points that are diametrically opposite, but they exist within the context of an infinite number of other points anywhere else on the sphere, you know. We need to get out of being stuck on this and acknowledge this entire thing, because it's all, for whatever reason, it was like, no, don't finish that sentence. There's something else. I don't know. If I really try to hone into what's coming through, it just takes me right back to the pine trees. And it's like, it's almost unsettling, because it's like a pine forest at night in some remote mountain somewhere that I don't even know, and it's just, I can see like the backdrop of the stars behind the dark silhouette of these pine trees, and I can see them and hear them as the wind is blowing through and filtering through their leaves. You know, there's almost a coldness, a cold quality, a harsh quality to the sound. I mean, it's definitely like soft and relaxing, but there's something stark about it at the same time. And I feel like unless you've heard that sound, you won't really know what I'm talking about. So I hope that you kind of know what I'm saying. I don't really know why that's like, it's the only thing that I can hear and see right now. Why is that important? Why is that relevant? I wonder if it's maybe just the notion of objectivity, because that song popped back into my head after I asked that, you know, such great heights. They won't see us waving from such great heights. When you're from that a raised perspective, whether that's in the mountains or, you know, the top of a pine tree somewhere, you have a very different perspective of things because you're able to see the larger patterns. So maybe that's what this is about, is removing yourself from the day-to-day minutia and getting caught up in the little oppositions and conflicts that arise, and taking stock of the larger perspective. Like, when you're in the pattern, you can't see it, so you need to lift up off the ground and look at it from above in order to see what the shape is. Crop circles, I mean, come on, grain. Maybe that's what that's I don't know. There's like a harmony that's being expressed, a balance, a symmetry, a Venusian quality. You know, it's artistic, it's carefully crafted, it's geometrically perfect. But when you're stuck in like a small fragment of it, you can't see that. It just looks like some random little crunchy bit. I don't know. So in order to appreciate it in its full beauty, you need to raise up to the pinnacle, to the solstice, to the highest point. Because it's only then that the larger pattern makes sense. I feel like there's more things that I could break down, but I feel like that's ultimately the message that's coming through. I'm not really sure how exactly to interpret it, especially on a mundane level. I mean, I think it's relatively straightforward, but also a little bit confusing, even for me. But, you know, that's why I record these readings for the most part, is because a lot of times they don't make sense, even to me, immediately upon watching them. But it's like when you let a little time go by and then you come back and revisit it later, it's like, oh, this makes so much more sense now that I have the context for understanding what you were talking about. So yeah, maybe that'll be the case for you guys, and maybe that'll be the case for me. I know there's a couple readings that I do periodically that I will upload privately to my channel, just for my own sake, because I go back and do that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I was talking about now, even though when I did the reading I had no idea what I was talking about or what that meant. So anyway, we're at like 40 some minutes. I do want to record more readings for you guys. I don't know when that's going to happen. Everything's just a little weird. I'm trying to gather things back together again, with my own time management and energy management and everything. So I hope I eventually get back on a more reliable reading schedule. But I also don't want to put the expectation out there, because I don't know when a message is going to come through. I don't like forcing messages to come through. I appreciate all the readers that are out there that can do regular readings all the time throughout long periods of time. For me, it feels very much like there's a flux and a flow for me where I can come out and engage with you guys and do these readings, and then I need to pull back and pull away and like disappear because I can't do this all the time. It's a lot for me. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm here now and I want to keep showing up as much as I can. So yeah, I wish you all the best. I have other video ideas for stuff that's not related to readings, and I don't know if I'm going to make a separate channel for that or if I'm going to do it here. I've been kind of also writing a book. it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I'm doing my best, as I'm sure y'all are too. But hang in there. Hang in there. I wish you all the best, and I hope that I don't know. I hope the best for all of you, for all of us. This is a very strange and potent time that we're living in. And none of us are alone. So keep at it. Keep your friends close. And if you don't have friends, I feel like you do. And you just don't know. Maybe you can't see them, but they're there. Anyway, I can go off and on for a while, so I'm going to stop that there. You guys take care.